passionate about. For me, it's this right here. Yeah, you can't read that at all. Forget about this. These are just a few of the books I have that are on revival. I've been learning and hearing about revival basically my entire life. As a son of a hang on a second. If you're like me, someone who grew up in church, you probably heard that word revival a whole bunch. But what really is revival? Revival is described as something being improved. So to revive something, what does that mean for the church? What does that mean for you and I? This word can mean such diverse different things to different people, especially in and around the church. See, the side effect of what we see in the church today essentially is that there's just so many different options out there as far as what you can be and what you believe. And the reality is, if you believe in the Bible, you shouldn't really have to, in a lot of senses, believe in a universal truth, a firm foundation of truth. And so with all these multiplication of Baptists, Southern Baptists, Independent Baptists, Missionary Baptists, Assemblies of God, non-denominational, Christian, the list goes on and on and on of all these evangelicals who believe different things, and inside of that there's different parallels of what people believe. See, so I kind of describe it as we're all speaking the same words, but we're not necessarily saying the same thing. We're speaking different languages. I think the best way we can do that is by looking at history as what was one of the great revivals of yesteryear, so we can get kind of a grasp of what revival actually is. So travel back with me, if you will, to December of 1734 in Massachusetts. Jonathan Edwards has been ministering to people of Massachusetts for several years of fruitless ministry. But in December, there was 5 or 6 salvations in one night. This was the catalyst. This was the preparation for change. Edwards writes in his journal that actually one of the girls who was saved was a young girl who was a prostitute who actually said that she feared that her salvation might quench the fire that was beginning to stoke in their community. But in fact, it was to the exact opposite. Over the course of the next 3 months, 300 people in the town of 1100 were saved. And then over the course of the next 6 months, is spread to more than 100 towns in the area. That is 1739, George Whitefield led a service in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was the spark that the revival needed to spread throughout all of the colonies, in fact. And it's estimated that over the course of Whitefield's ministry, more than 900,000 people heard the gospel, 80% of the colonists living in early America. So what we see is that when that revival was sparked, it spread across the entire region. It's what really sparked the ideological position and status of our country that led to our Constitution and everything being put into place the way it was. So if that's our bearing and we come back to what we look like in our culture today, we're not actually that diversely different from Whitefield and Edwards' time. In reality, we are a lost generation. Our young people don't know Jesus, don't understand why we would want Jesus, and in fact the church has done a poor job of executing and allowing them to understand the core of what Jesus actually represents. See, my theory is that the generations leading up to today, they made one fatal mistake. What's that mistake, you say? What they did was they made it cultural and not personal. Personal connection with God can't be overstated. See, the Bible was everywhere. It was in schools, it was in churches, it was everywhere you went was this biblical mindset in the world. And you would think that'd be a good thing. But in fact, we see this all the way back in the Old Testament. As the Israelites would get further away from the point when God saved them, that the church itself would actually begin to descend away from God because there was no longer a personal understanding of why that connection was needed. See, as we think about the church as it sits today, the vast majority of people don't understand why they need God. In fact, they have no reason because they don't live their lives in a way in which they desire or are in need of His support. And that's why we see oftentimes in points of trouble and trial that there will be a return to the church, but as that problem fades and becomes less prevalent in the mind, so does the faith. So what do we do as the church to overcome this issue? Well, have a theory. You see, what we kind of do is we kind of sit back and think that one day everybody's going to wake up and go, oh, I need Jesus. But it's not going to happen. We have to spend time as the church actually serving the people around us. I'm spending a lot of time in my personal study thinking about who Jesus tells us to go to. You see, oftentimes we try to focus on those who are already somewhat in affiliation, right? But in fact, actually, the people who are the furthest from God oftentimes have the easiest time coming to Him. Why? It's kind of the rich man versus poor man thing, right? When you feel like you've got it under control, why do I need to welcome anything else into my life? But people who are furthest from God hear about the love that is available to them and understand that they need it and they don't have anything like it in their lives. The people who are out there seeking for something. If we start first with those people, what I really believe is the church needs to reevaluate everything down to the foundations of who and how we minister to people. It's no longer a build it and they will come. In fact, that's not ever what the Bible is supposed to be. It is a go to them and then bring them, right? To lead by example. So in your personal life, what it looks like is that revival, before it can start in the church, has to start in your own independent life. And ask yourself, what am I doing for the gospel today? Where am I going? Who am I approaching? See, Whitefield and Edwards, they both saw a need and they went to the problem. They began to preach and do things that were needed in the world at that point. And they were there and they were constant in good and in bad. And not everybody they talked to came to know Jesus, but many did. And that was because of their faithfulness. So how do we start this? Well, look at Acts 1:8. That we go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. These 4 locations perfectly describe the places in our life, right? The people who are closest to us, our neighbor, the people we don't even want to talk to, and the ends of the earth, right? Everyone around us needs to hear the gospel. God created us to be with Him, and our sins separate us from God. Our sin cannot be paid for by good deeds, but paying the price for sin, Jesus died and rose again, and everyone who trusts in Him can have life everlasting. And life with Jesus starts now and lasts forever. The reality is the gospel is simple. It's not difficult to convey in a matter of a few sentences, but it takes a life that's living it out. So how do we see a revival in our world again? The answer's simple. It starts with you. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit different and it's a whole new style and I'm kind of working on it all still, so make sure you're subscribed so you can kind of keep seeing more as we develop this new kind of story-driven mentality with all of our videos. So thanks so much for checking it out. If you like it, like I said, subscribe, hit that like button, let me know you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. God bless.